Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Badass Confidence Coach podcast. This is part 2 of our discussion around how to develop more intimacy with your partner, your spouse, after years of being together. So last week's episode was about why is it that we become roommates and why are these things happening in my long-term partnership where we just have gotten into a really dry spell and we're not having sex, and I don't understand why that's happening.
So now what to do?
Yeah. And many people would say, and Anna, and I don't really care.
And I don't care.
I can hear women saying that, but I think it's important.
And maybe that's part of it. I mean, you have to care a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually do think women do care, but there are so many barriers that we've talked about in last week's episode
true.
that have led them to this place of saying, I don't care. But I'm half joking. Women do care.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want that emotional intimacy first, though. Okay. So what can couples do to start to change their sexual relationship, their intimate relationship with each other? Okay. I'm going to go through this. Number 1, you got to prioritize quality time together. You got to prioritize going back to date night. That is something that gets lost. I talk about this all the time. I mean, you all know who are listening to this podcast or are watching on YouTube. You know, there's things I say that term. I talk about this all the time because I do talk about it all the time. And that's why I started this podcast. I want to share this with you because these are conversations that I am having with people in the 4 walls of my office, whether it be a therapy client or a coaching client. These are conversations people are having with me. And I think that we're not having them enough with each other. And what happens is now, this one about sexual intimacy, I understand you're not going to be talking with maybe many people about it. That's why I'm talking about it, because you're not alone. There's this mental isolation, this emotional isolation in our heads. And I want to bring it out into the light and talk about what it is that so many people are also going through too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is one of them. Okay. So you got to prioritize being together and go back to what you did many years ago. What did you enjoy doing years ago? Did you enjoy, like, it's fall now here in Chicagoland area and the leaves are changing. What did you do when you were first dating? What did you do when you were first together? You're first married? You know, maybe go for a walk on a beautiful trail and look at the leaves. Maybe you have gotten away. Maybe Sundays you used to always go to brunch. Maybe, I don't know what it would be. I mean, maybe you would run together, work out together. You don't do that anymore. Quality time together. Okay. So that can really help you feel the sense of reconnection with each other. This is why I'm with this person. This is why we got together 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So
you and I have, it's funny because like date night, we've been in and out of that.
It is hard.
Cycle,
Yeah.
right? Like we've made it a focus and a priority and it's been a thing.
And then it falls off.
And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, date night, what night was that supposed to be on?
Yeah.
And then it's like, then it's not even that. Then it's just like, we don't even talk about it. And it's funny because it goes in cycles like that all the time. I don't know, but what that's about.
And all that to say that you and I are right there with everybody that I talk about with couples. I think we do an okay job, but you and I don't do a great job.
No,
because
we could do better.
We have date night and then something will come up and you'll say, I can't. Let's say we were saying Wednesdays and then you would say, I got to get this client in. I'm like, well, and I'm like, you can see them Wednesday. It's all right. We don't have to go out to dinner.
Yeah, we'll push it to Thursday.
Because you're trying, and we don't go Thursday.
Yeah, right.
Because you're trying to see a client because it's work.
Right.
You're trying to see a client, or I have done it. I'm like, I got group coaching now on, Wednesday nights. It's like, all right, that's fine. We don't have to, but we don't do it any other night.
Yeah.
So that's really important because leaving our home, going to a restaurant for you and I, just getting dressed up, putting on a cute outfit or, just there's something to that. Sitting in a restaurant, having a drink, not being at home versus in our, my sweats where you always say I look like a 14-year-old boy. Getting out of those clothes, getting out of Dodge, so to speak, really does make a difference. It brings back a sense of connection and it brings back, oh yeah, we're a part of this world and this environment and we're choosing to be together.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing to talk to you and look at you across from a table in a restaurant and listen to you talk about your day. There's just something different about, for many of us coming out of COVID, getting out of the house.
Right. And it's a good lesson. I mean, as we're saying this stuff out loud, it's a good lesson for me is like that should be the priority, right? Like let everything else revolve around that versus letting that be the one thing that gets moved around all the time,
Yeah, I know.
right? Like shame on us. Shame on me, right?
Well, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say shame, but
Well,
you're
that you
right.
know what I
You're
mean.
right.
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
do. So we have to always, so I always say this, get back up and keep going, get back up and keep going. All right. So you last 2 weeks, you haven't gone out. All right. Go back, press the reset button, talk to your partner. Hey, I've noticed that we've gotten off. We haven't gone out. Let's go. Can we do Wednesday night? Can we get back to Wednesday nights? Can we get back to Fridays? Fridays is sacrosanct. That's our time together where we meet after work or we go to this restaurant. Who's going to make the reservation? Do you want to make the reservation? It's Monday for Friday. I'll do it. Okay, you do it. Okay, what time? 6. Okay. Fridays are your time together. What doesn't matter? Maybe it's you meet every Thursday for lunch. You meet at a restaurant around you. And I'm just thinking about restaurants because that's easy, but think about, what it would be. Maybe you meet at the gym at 5:30 and that's something you do together. And yeah, you're maybe on the treadmill doing your own workout, but you're together and maybe you're going to go out for dinner after that. Or, for us it used to be we would swim in the early in the mornings and then we'd go for coffee after. And it was like our ritual. And I loved it because we would swim at 6 a.m. Saturday mornings. But then we always went to Starbucks and it was a time we'd get like, pumpkin bread or it was like what we did. It was a treat. We went and
Right.
got ourselves like a scone, coffee. And you and I would sit there and talk to each other. We would just shoot the shit about life.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And it was an important time. And it's the only reason what really got me out of bed some of those early 5:30 a.m.
It's not about the swimming.
Saturday
It's
mornings was
about
that
the
I
coffee
it
after.
was the coffee and the scone and sitting and
And the
chilling with
time.
you.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah, it
time.
was about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, so prioritize quality time together. If you haven't, I really encourage you to go back to it, okay? Get that time together.
And one thing to add to that, I think that would be helpful, and I'm speaking to us now, I think, is like maybe a good way to do it is like if you've got a time that you've agreed upon and you've set aside, right? Like, okay, it's Wednesday nights. Okay, cool. You've got next Wednesday. You pick what we do.
Okay.
And then I'll take the Wednesday after.
Okay.
And you know what I mean? And it's like that way, it's like one person's not always the person.
Just agree on the places because I know, especially controlling women like myself, will be like, I don't want to go to that restaurant. Why'd you make reservations there?
Well, it doesn't even have to be food, right? It can be something else.
Come up with a list of pre-approved places or
Yeah.
things to do.
Or things to do, right? Because it doesn't have to be always be
Yeah.
like we're gonna go out for dinner on date night. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that regimented.
Yeah.
Like it could be anything, but like
Yeah.
it's your week. What
I agree.
are we doing?
Okay,
You
that's a
set the
good
table.
good plan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, next one is you got to communicate openly to each other about your needs and desires. And this is communication, always communication. So you got to have honest discussions with each other about your emotional and your physical needs. Okay. You know, if you're not doing that, there could be misunderstandings and just disjointed communication patterns and styles between the two of you. You need to understand what I want and I need in this relationship. And I want and I need really to understand what it is that you're desiring. You know,
Yeah.
that's really important. And couples are not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think in the first part one of this, I think you made this statement like, I don't know who you are anymore, right? Like that's a thing,
Yeah.
right? Like that, but so this is what we're talking about is like having that open line of communication throughout the years, like so that it doesn't get to the point 10 years in, 20 years in that you have that thought in your head, right? Because you talked about it over
Right.
and over and over and over, and you've never allowed it to get to that point because you just talked about it
Right.
yesterday
Right.
or last week,
Right. Gotta communicate. What is it that you need in this relationship? What am I desiring? I'm desiring to get back to just spending time with you or talking the way we used to talk years ago. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I always say this. I said it last week. I'll say it today, and I'll always say this. You make love to a woman's mind before you make love to her body, and men need it too. We need to feel seen and heard with each other. Listen to the other person. Listen.
Yeah.
I was listening to another podcast recently where it's like a call-in radio talk show format, and the caller was saying to this podcast host, I don't like my wife anymore. We were married for 10 years and I don't like her. And me as a former couples therapist, I had a lot of red flags that were coming up for me. So I was just always a little curious about what this podcast host was going to tell this caller, what advice or insights they were going to give this caller. And but the husband was saying she's not who she used to be, and we've gotten really busy in our lives, and she doesn't pay attention to me. She's not the woman I married, and I don't like her now. I was like, ooh, that's harsh
That's rough.
and honest. I told you
Yeah,
about this.
yeah,
I told
yeah.
you I listened to it
Yeah,
because
it's
it was
rough.
like it was rough. And he said she's always like almost like ADHD mess, and like we all have ADHD in this day and age, I think. Seriously, the world we live in with our social media and our attention deficits. But she's always busy with the kids and going here and going there. And then we are together and I talk, she doesn't listen to me. It's really affecting me and I just don't like who she is. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I think that, it's so important to keep those lines of communication open to each other, show up with emotional availability, show up paying attention, but be there present in your mind and in your heart, in the room, in the space at that time, in the car driving. Pay attention to what the other person is saying to you. We all want to feel heard. If we don't feel heard, it will shut us down. We tend to get shut down as people
Yeah,
and we stop talking.
yeah. And I gotta believe. I don't like the fact that it's true, but I gotta believe that that is commonplace, right? Like, there's not a lot of these deep conversations going on
No,
between
no, I agree.
married
No,
couples that have been married for a long time.
I don't think so.
I think that it's very surfacey. I think, you and I have a lot of friends, a lot of couple friends, and I think that you could, not in a judging way, but like you can see like how sometimes couples interact with each other, and it paints a picture of kind of how they are, right? Like you kind of get a feel like, ooh,
Yeah.
like they're short with each other, or they're irritated quickly by each other, and you're like, man, oh man, that does not look like a happy relationship or a fun place.
It's just time has worn them down.
Yeah.
Time wears you down and you get caught up in everything that's going on in your life. And what happens is for some reason, the first thing we let slide is our intimate relationships, our marriages. We just let them slide. We just phone them in every day. Don't put a lot of effort into it. And if you want to have a better marriage, you got to work at it.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Here we go. I'm saying it again. You got to work at it. The healthiest marriages that I've seen, the strongest marriages, they work. You don't walk down the aisle and say, I do, or show up to Justice of the Peace or wherever you get married and say, yeah, I'll marry you and you'll marry me. And, and then walk away and not think you're going to work at it. You're going to work at it. And you have to work on it even when you don't feel like it. You got to work on your marriage when it's the last thing you want to do
Yeah.
because of everything we've talked about
Right.
in last week's episode.
Right.
You got to work at it. And
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
You and I know it's hard. We've had some hard conversations with each other
We have.
that have taken up time where it's like, my God, we've been talking for an hour. They take up time. They take emotional energy for us to talk these things through. I'm a processor. I'm a verbal processor of my emotions and my thoughts. And I am more than you. And so you are patient with me. And I have to do that. I have to feel seen, like you really see me and what it is Anna's trying to say. But that takes time. It takes time for me to do it with you and you to do it with me.
Right.
Really important.
And it's critical that I know that about you.
Yeah.
Like if right, like I have to be like dialed in to like be like, okay, that's how she needs to do this for
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, oh, she's talking too much, or this sounds like a monologue. I won't allow myself to think that because I understand the process that you
Well, you might
have.
think that a little bit.
I might, but
She's talking too much. It's a monologue.
but I also understand that you need to do that.
Well, because for me, it's a verbal download. It's like I'm downloading all of what's in me about, like, let's say there's an issue with us. If something has happened and we haven't had time to talk about it because we're so busy in the week. And then like something happens that tips off like a fight between us, that we get into an argument or a debate around something. And what I have to do is I do a verbal download with you of, this is the backstory. This is what I'm thinking. And that's why there's a very funny scene in Schitt's Creek where David says to his mother, Moira, she goes to tell a story She goes to answer his question and she starts with, well, let me tell you. And back when I was a kid, he goes, start later, start later. And I laugh so hard because that's like exactly Tim and I. And now you say to me, you
I
go,
do say
start later, start later, because I don't want to hear the whole backstory to your story, Anna. Your story has a story, has a story. And anyway, so that's important for me. And when I feel listened by you, when I'm doing that verbal download,
Yeah.
it does create a sense of intimacy for me towards you, emotional intimacy
Yeah.
towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. Because you have a tendency, and this is not a critical thought, but like, and you know this because we've talked about this so many times, but like you have a tendency to go off on a tangent. Like
Just a little bit.
you'll bring some details into a story that are like details about details about details of the story, right?
I
Like,
told you. I just said my story has a story, has a story.
yeah. And it's like, I know that about you. And I also enjoy listening to that, to all of those details.
Yeah.
And I think the only time that I will be like, okay, can you start later is like if I know that like
Start later.
we're not going to get to the end of this story if you don't push forward.
I know. We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
You got to go to work or you
Yeah.
got to go somewhere. I know.
Yeah.
So many people are like that, but not all. So, however your style is as an individual, if you're a part of a couple, think about how, like, this goes kind of to Gary Chapman's love languages, the 5 love languages. How do you want to be communicated to? How do you communicate your needs and your desires in the relationship? And I'm not talking about sex here. I'm talking about your needs and desires in all the different areas of your life, in your marriage, in your partnership. So this is what I need. This is what I need every day. This is what I need weekly. I need you to do the laundry. Start with something like that. Like take the mental labor away from each other or lighten the mental labor load, especially in a woman's mind, but it can be a man's mind too, right? So if you could do the laundry just do it. That's hugely helpful. You don't realize how much it affects me that I feel like I can't keep up with this laundry or help clean the house. Just think about what it is for you in your relationship and communicate what it is that you need.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Can I give you a real life on this one?
Yeah, but I got a lot on this list here,
I know
so we
you
gotta
do.
move.
Well, so this last week at work, I had somebody come to me into my office, close the door. They want to talk. And this was one of my supervisor's people. So
Okay.
like I was not her immediate supervisor slash boss. Like
Okay.
I'm her boss's boss.
Person came to you.
Yeah. And so, but what was interesting is that the conversation revolved around many things. But one of the things was like, she felt like she was not being heard by her supervisor and she was not being communicated to in a way that she needed to be. And so
What was that? So
she needed positive feedback, like getting confirmation that she was a good teacher or that she was doing the process correctly. And in her opinion, she felt like it was always like, no, work on this more. Or
criticisms. Air quote, constructive criticisms.
And I brought up that book and I said, this is not far removed from like that whole like love language thing. And she's like, oh, I know that book. And I said, you're telling me that this is how you need to receive feedback. And yet you're not getting it at all. You're actually getting it the opposite way. I said, that's something you all need to talk about. Like you need to have that conversation with your supervisor because I think that's got to change.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah,
stuff.
that is interesting. Yeah. See here, it's getting needs and desires met at work.
Correct.
Like I desire and I need to receive feedback in this way. This is my air quote love language, but yeah, you can use those love languages in any arena.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for 5 years, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional basis and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Anna. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. Check it out. You will not regret it.
Next one, what can you do to work on your relationship is go back to reintroduce novelty and adventure. We talked about last week about like in the beginning, the sex is great because it's novel, it's new, it's fun, it's exciting, it's titillating. It is. But as years go by, it's like wah wah. So reintroduce novelty and adventure, and maybe you could do it in a sexual way if you can agree on some sexual exploration you want to do with one another. There's that. But I'm really talking, let's experience new things together. I don't know. We'll learn how to play ping pong together. That's actually really good for the brain, how it works. Maybe you're going to join a mountain biking group. So, maybe you got some mountain bikes, they're sitting in your garage or in your shed or, you're in your storage space. Get them out and join a group around you, or find something that you both might like to do.
Yeah.
And do it together. That's exciting.
That's different.
Yeah. That's really exciting. It's like maybe you want to get back into traveling. Maybe you both loved to travel before you had kids, but you've gotten bogged down. All right, well, finances might be an issue now, and maybe you can't go for a week to Europe, or you can't go to 2 weeks to Argentina, but can you take a night? Can you get someone to watch the kids for a night? Can you go to a hotel? Go to a nicer hotel, get out of your town, maybe go to the city. Can you go for a weekend somewhere? Maybe you can do a weekend. Maybe you go to a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb somewhere, just different from where you are. I mean, when you leave the city of Chicago and the suburbs here, it's like you could be in a different world. Wisconsin and Michigan are very different, beautiful states compared to where we live right now. They're just different.
And they're close.
And they're close, and you feel
right?
like you're a world away.
You can be there wherever you're going in an hour.
Right.
It's nothing. Right.
So think about and talk about what are some hobbies that we can share together. That's really important. So that activates the brain's reward centers, and you have a positive association to getting the reward center activated in your brain. You have a positive association to your partner. You did it with them. You did it with your husband. You did it with your wife. So that's bodes really well, and is so good for the relationship. Okay. So there's a release of dopamine that really can bring back a sense of excitement. So, this is the dopaminergic stuff. I mean, when you're like on a trail with this new group and you're doing your mountain bike thing, I'm just using that as an example here, maybe because I would love to do that myself actually with you.
I'll take notes.
I think it'd be fun.
I got it.
But I think my dopamine is just going.
Yeah.
Because I'm outside, I'm getting a workout in, I'm meeting new people, which does light me up. And I'm also with you. And it's just such a wonderful sense of camaraderie, not just with the new people, but with you.
Right.
And we're getting in the car and like, hey, what did you think about that ride? Did you meet Joe? Isn't he such a nicest guy? And what did you think about Sally? Like, it's now we have the shared hobby together.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Really, really important.
I mean, you can even fold that into we talked about this in the first episode, is like your date night. Like the date night, that's one thing. But if it's date night and it's something different, like a new thing,
shared experiences.
Like if you can combine those two together,
take a cooking class.
That's powerful.
Take a cake decorating class.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of fun and low cost different activities that we can do. All right. Okay. Next one is got to foster that emotional intimacy. So, couples who feel emotionally close tend to experience more physical closeness. So I've been saying this the whole time, is the vein that has been running through even last week's session and session. I just said session. I meant episode. See, here's the therapist coaching me is that's so funny. I just said session.
I always thought that this was a session.
That is so funny. I just said that. So last week's episode, that's the vein that runs through, and it's the one that's running through today's episode, is fostering emotional intimacy. All that we're talking about is going to help with the emotional intimacy before we're moving into physical intimacy. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I use my insurance for this?
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on. Okay. So this is really important. Expressing affection outside the bedroom. So small, consistent gestures like hugs, holding hands, writing thoughtful notes. It keeps the emotional bond strong. Tim is rubbing my shoulder. It keeps the emotional bond strong. It's true. So when I was years ago, I used to work closely with, I had 2 sex therapists I would refer couples to if there really was a sexual dysfunction in the relationship. It's not that common. And the 2 sex therapists I worked with, I realized after getting to know them and consulting with them on cases time and time again that what they did was very, very similar to what I did. They actually didn't spend a whole lot of time actually talking about the sex with their clients. They talked about the psychology of their relationship and the psychology of why they weren't having sex. And that's the exact same thing that I did. It was actually interesting. So I actually over the years referred to them less and less because I realized that, and my couples will come back to me and say, yeah, you know, we didn't really talk that much about sex because that wasn't really what it was about. That's not what the problems were. You had to take care of what was in each other's brains before you could talk about the sex act.
Yeah.
Because it's I would say in this case it's 95% up in our heads.
Right. Well, that's the
Right.
root of what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was interesting though. These sex therapists would say, I do the same thing that you do. It's not that different. Every now and then they would actually get it. There would be somebody who really did have a sexual dysfunction who maybe couldn't have an orgasm, was struggling with an orgasm, struggling with, there was a sexual dysfunction, but for the most part, that's not what they were seeing and always treating. So I think it's really, really important that, and how they would talk and that how I would talk. And I think Esther Perel talks about this, who I love, who's like the couples therapist guru who has a very well-known podcast, Where Shall We Begin? And that's a great podcast. I don't have no relationship to her, but I'm going to plug that if you're ever interested in being a fly on the wall. Truly, those podcast episodes are you being a fly on the wall as she's in therapy with her clients. She's fantastic. But the way you start with getting back to physical intimacy is often in touch. So the sex therapist I would work with, and then I was doing this. So for the next week, and especially many people, there's trauma, there's a trauma history. So you have to really know what you're doing when you're working with an individual of a couple who has a trauma past. But we would start with, for this next week, make an effort to just hold hands with one another. Hold hands, maybe hold each other's hands, sit on the couch next to each other, not across the couch like we tend to do. One's lying, one's sitting. No, sit or lie together. Sit next to each other, hold each other's hand. Make an effort in the week to show gestures of affection. Put your hand on the person's shoulder. Send them a note, like write a sticky note of something. Have a great day. I love you. Thinking about you today. Know you've got that big meeting coming up. That goes a long way. Remember when I said you make love to a woman's mind before her body? These are ways. And then you move into physical affection, not sexual touch, physical touch that's affectionate and shows tenderness and loving.
They're like small moments, right? Like
Mhm.
they come and go quickly, but like they're huge potentially.
Huge. Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, you and I have we have a lot of couple friends. I mean, if I think about this for a minute, like you don't really see that, right? You don't,
No.
no one really shows
No,
that.
because we're all just like I said, we're all like 2 ships in the night. We're all busy.
Yeah.
We all are in these long-term marriages, and we're all friends with each other, and the couples are friends with each other, I think, for the most part. And it's gotten real comfortable, and you don't see that. It's striking. Well, last night we were with several couples, good friends of ours, and I saw 2 of them kissing each other throughout the night. And I thought it was so sweet. The 2 of them, 2 of the couples are they very much love each other. And they'll just like walking by, kiss the other person. I'm like, that's so sweet because they've been married a long time.
Right.
They make an effort on their marriage. I know the one couple really works on their marriage. I know they do.
Yeah.
Because they've told me.
Yeah.
It's very important to them because 3 out of 4 of their kids are gone. There's one at home and that one will be gone in August. They have told me it's very important to them that they work on themselves because the kids are going to go and they are going. And then we turn and we face each other. It's like, oh, hey, what's up? It's you.
Right.
I forgot about
And
you. You've
there's
been
that
raising all these
question,
kids.
"Well, who are you?" question,
Right,
right?
right,
That question
right.
comes up all of a
Yeah.
sudden. You're right. There you go.
It's nice to see.
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, we also see the opposite, where it's just like we're all
I think
buddies.
that's commonplace.
We're all buddies.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Next, if you want to improve your relationship, you want to improve that intimacy in your relationship, work on yourself. Invest in your own self-care and your personal growth. I think that I just alluded to it earlier when I talked about, with sexual dysfunction, sometimes in couples or an individual that's part of a couple, that we can see trauma. You got to do your own work. Okay. So some of this is not about your partner, your husband, your wife. Some of this is about you. Okay. So there's that piece where I would say, see a therapist, but also I think it's really important that, you be working on your own stuff. Maybe maybe you need to work on some perfectionism tendencies because you self-sabotage quite a bit at work and you'll self-sabotage with friends. Maybe you need to work on your stress levels. You're not managing stress well. Maybe you've gotten away from, maybe all you feel like you're doing is you're up to your arms in diapers and bottles and little kids and yelling and screaming and fighting and stepping on Legos. Think about where you are in your life. In all of that, I would say work on you, whether that's see a therapist. If you need psychotherapy, get yourself a life coach. You could do some of this on your own. You could do some self-help by reading the internet today. There's so much that's available to you that's free or very low charge, but work on you. Sort of meditation practice. That's working on you. Maybe join a book club. There's different like book clubs that you could even join now, apps that you can join where you can get increase your knowledge if you're interested, like let's say in neuroscience, or you're interested in astrology or the planets or different universes, UFOs. I'm just like, what's interesting to you? You can increase your knowledge around it.
Right.
Take care of you.
Yeah.
But work on personal growth. Okay. I think that makes you actually a more interesting individual. And it makes it like I have respect when I see you taking care of you. It makes my respect for you go up and my affection and attention towards you go up because I'm curious about what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, because I think this is great advice, because you and we are each 50% of this conversation.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing anything, then half of that is gone already, right? There's no chance that anything's going to be moving forward in this, getting better at all of this, if one person does absolutely nothing.
And think about, for those who are listening and watching, think about what your values are. What do you value? You have to start there. Look at your values and then work on getting clarity around your values. So for you and I think fitness is a high value. So I love when you're like, I'm going for a run. I'm like, have at it, go, because you come back. I love that you're running. I love that you're doing something hard, because I respect that you're working on your body and on your mind, because once again, it's about the mind, but it's important for me to see you take care of you. And it does make you a more interesting person to me.
Makes
Also,
sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So whatever it is, work on you.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're doing that, you get this feeling of fulfillment and individuality. Like this is who I am. And you bring a renewed sense of energy and excitement to the relationship.
Right.
Okay.
I think you also have to say, so your partner, you want them to go do this or do that. Like, you have to be good with it also. Like, you have to be good with them trying something different.
Yes, that's true.
Like, you can't be resentful that they're spending time.
Well, now they're going and you have to take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Well, arrange
yeah.
that ahead of time.
Right.
Arrange it. You and I have always done that. Arrange it ahead of time. Like, you're going to watch the kids. I'm going for a run. And then when I get back, then you'll go.
Right.
We would do that. You tag team. And a lot of people are really good at doing that, but think about that for you and your relationship.
Yeah. And what's the glue right there?
And if you are resentful and you don't have an issue like taking care of kids or animals,
yeah,
then I would say to you if you're resentful, that behooves you to look at yourself. Why are you resentful? What is it that's coming up inside of you that's percolating to the surface that you're resentful that your husband or your wife is going for a 45-minute run, hour run, whatever. They're meeting with a running group on Tuesday nights. Why are you resentful of that? That's a you problem, not the runner's problem.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think so the glue at this is the communication piece. Like you have to talk about this stuff out loud,
Yeah.
right? Like I understand that you need to go do this or that for you, and I support it, and I've got your back, and I'll cover you for this or this or this or
Right.
this, right? Like you have
Right.
to talk out loud about that
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. And I've mentioned this before, addressing and resolving past conflicts. All right. Unresolved issues are creating walls between people. It's creating walls between you and your spouse, your partner. You may need to go to therapy for this, okay, or couples counseling to work through, any lingering resentments that you have. And many of us, we could improve our communication skills. A therapist is going to help you. And sometimes like a couples coach, if it's you don't have deep-seated issues, can help you with your communication. Okay. That's really important because if you've got unresolved past conflicts with each other, you got to work that out. You got to purge it. You got to bring it up. You got to bring it out. Or you're not going to be able to do a lot of the other things that I'm talking about here. Next one is maintain your physical health. What can you do to move into more intimacy with each other? Work on yourself. Work on your physical health. That's really important. Get your exercise. Get your sleep. Stress management is so important here. Learn how to manage that stress. Learn how to manage it better. All right.
Yeah. Stress can be so consuming.
Stress, not getting sleep, not eating great, drinking a ton of alcohol, not working out. That's going to absolutely impact your libido and your mood.
It's going to bog you down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does affect your sexual libido.
Yeah.
It affects your mood.
Yeah. There's
Anxiety,
no other
depression go up.
result but
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For all of those things you just said, you have all of those things stacked against you at the same time, potentially.
I mean, it's almost half the battle. When you feel physically well, there you go. You're
Yeah.
like, I feel good. I
Yeah.
feel good in my body. Like I feel good.
Yeah.
And this is not about a weight thing. This is just, that feeling of like, I feel good. I feel empowered. I feel powerful. I feel strong. I feel like I'm eating a little bit better and I'm not drinking as much. And I really working on my sleep and I go to the gym, work out 3 or 4 times a week. That's wonderful. And I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Like, great. That's going to help you when you go to look at yourself in the mirror naked. It really is.
Yeah. And I think you got to say too, like, if you're talking to somebody who's like, you're not talking to somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it is, like we all know we don't look the same as we did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. As your partner knows that,
Right.
like you have to be good with both sides of that.
Right.
Like both of that's like neither one of us are like what we look like when we
Right.
were back in our 20s, back in our 30s. Right. And we're good with it. Right.
Yeah.
We don't care because it's about the person. It should
Because
be.
I still like you.
Exactly.
And I'm curious about you.
Yeah.
And I love what we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So maintain that physical health, bring mindfulness to intimacy. So practicing mindfulness in the relationship, being fully present during those intimate moments and interactions, that goes a long, long way. It can make experiences feel fresh and connected rather than just routine. So be mindful, be emotionally available, be in the moment. Try not to get distracted. Try not to daydream. Because in the beginning of the start of, like having sex or now we're talking about physical intimacy. And I know women talk about this. You can still be daydreaming about like the grocery list or what you forgot to pick up at the store. And then you get to a point where you're starting to get a little bit more aroused and that goes away. But in the beginning, it can be really hard. That's why foreplay is important for women because they are thinking about things like, shoot, did I give that teacher that form I said I was going to send? Oh, wait, I don't think I sent that email. I mean, this stuff goes on.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving it as an excuse. It's a reason we all need to do better at being mindful and being fully present in the moment. So that might be setting up the environment that's appealing for you. Maybe it's candles, maybe it's lights dim, maybe, you think of it. Think of what it is
It could be 100 different
yeah, it could be
things.
for any couple.
Yeah. Yeah.
But think of what it is. That's why I think going away for weekends is so important because it can feel rote in your bedroom. Try another part of the house or make your bedroom more palatable to you. Turn the TV off. Maybe turn music on. Okay.
Well, you and I have talked
Well,
about
as couple
like,
therapists, we don't like TVs in bedrooms. I know lots of people have
right.
TVs in their bedrooms, but we're never going to be, okay, we don't want TVs in the bedrooms because TVs are a major sex detractor. Sex doesn't happen because people are too busy watching their shows. And I get it. I get
yeah.
it. But it's a behavior change that is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then at the end of all of this, if you're sitting here thinking or you're watching and you're like, no, it's okay. I hear all that you're saying, Anna, and there is just, no, I don't know if any of that's going to work. Then you might need to see a therapist. Sometimes we need a third party to come in and help us. Please don't put it off. If you've got hurts and there's damage and the marriage is fractured, seek out the help of a skilled couples therapist. They are amazing. I think everybody, well, this is my bent, but I do think that everybody at one time or another can go to couples therapy. You and I have gone and we weren't about to split up. We just had issues with the kids and we couldn't come to agreement. It was really, really very helpful to have another person come in and it was consultation, consult with you and I on our life, on our marriage and raising these kids. And it really, really helped us.
100%.
So I think that, but if you've got traumas, if you've got past hurts that you just can't get past, see somebody. And I've said this here on the podcast before, when I would see couples in my office, sometimes I said it, most times I thought it, you should have been here 4 years ago. You should have been here 4 years ago because now here it is in whatever year it is, and someone's got one foot out the door. And usually one person's coming only because the other person's threatening them, you better come or I'm going to split up, or the person's afraid we're at the end here and this is the last ditch effort. Usually someone had one foot out the door and they were so far gone and past the ability to be able to listen to each other. Respect has gone way down. Lots of disrespect, lots of anger, lots of resentment. Those are really, really hard cases. Not that they can't all come back, but I'm telling you now, if you have anything, even the littlest thing, or the two of you are just have lost each other and just the morass of busyness of life, maybe that could be your date night. And I know a lot of couples who do that. They see their therapist at 6 and they go to dinner after. Then do that.
That's
okay.
Good. That's good advice, actually.
Go talk to someone. Yeah.
So for me, I think the thread that's like going through all of this, these last 2 episodes is really communication, right? That is the most important thing. That's the one thing. If you're going to take one thing away, that's it from this.
Communicate.
Yeah. Like
you can't over communicate.
Correct. It's not possible.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everyone. I hope that was helpful. This is part 2 about couples and why are we not having sex anymore? Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast with 5 stars and reach out to me. Email me if you want to work with me. Come talk to me. And if you have like this person from last week's episode, this is why we're doing this talk about not having sex in these long-term relationships. That was a question from a listener. Email me your question and we'll go into it. All right. I'll bring it onto the podcast and we'll talk about it.
For sure.
And answer your questions. All right. Mad love, everyone. Till the next time.